Hello, Basic Brian here. Gonna talk about C.S. Lewis's Miracles again. A longer chapter called Horrid Red Things. And the first idea I have written down is Christianity distinctly needs miracles for it to work as a system, and Hinduism has no need of miracles because it's more of a nature-based religion. And modern education and miracles are at odds with a savage or primitive picture of the universe by Christians. Contempt and even disgust is felt by many for the writings of modern Christians. Not clear whether theology would have come into existence if writers of New Testament had the slightest knowledge of what real universe is like. So, reading of the Bible sidesteps to explain they didn't mean what they said, that they were using a poetic metaphor or constructing an allegory that was meant as harmless moral platitudes. So this is something that C.S. Lewis heard somebody describe as Christianity and something he did not like. So he goes into mental images, imagining versus thinking, and false to what we know reality to be. Some of our mental images are usually simplified, unless we are an artist who is very visually talented, but we simplify. We think of, he gives the example of London, and he thinks of a certain train station when he thinks of London, and that's not really what London is. London is a lot of people. It's a very large geographic area and with a lot of features, natural and things built, the river. But yeah, to think and say versus imagining and picturing mental images. Horrid red things are an aspirin, poisonous image from a little girl. So she gets this image of horrid red things in aspirin if you have too much as poisonous. And she has a right conclusion about this, but the imagery is wrong and kind of silly, but it's a mental picture. And sometimes that's all we can have, and it leads us to truth. And that's kind of what this chapter is about. Speaking about things not perceivable, we refer to things or actions that are. Grasp an idea of something, you kind of have it. Seeing a point of an idea, we see it we don't actually see it. We agree by saying, oh, we can see this idea. And this is kind of metaphoric. We use these sensory things as a metaphor. And it's not an optional thing for poets or orators as decor. We have to use it. We're forced to use language metaphoric when talking about concepts and ideas. All speech about supersensibles is and must be metaphorical in the highest degree. Thought is distinct from imagination. Thought may be sound even when false images that accompany are mistaken by thinker for true. An example, anyone who talks about things not sensed must inevitably talk as if they can be sensed. And the mere presence of mental images like God coming down from heaven does not itself tell us anything about reasonableness or absurdity of thoughts they accompany. It's necessary to talk like this. Getting rid of our mental images is not possible. It gets substituted for other images. We have our anthropomorphic man-like images that we use to talk about things, and like exchanging Heavenly Father as a expression with an air front or a fluid, or that band agnostic front. We are unspeakably different from God, the Creator. Thinking of God as shapeless mist haunts the mind when we rise to concept of impersonal and absolute being. Absurdity of images does not imply absurdity in the doctrines, like horrid red things and pills. This would not invalidate everything. Philosophical definiteness can never be the first necessity. We start with belief. We do things because we believe it. And the philosopher brings more precision to it, and rhetorical strength and definition and absolute knowledge and certainty, maybe. But usually some limitations there as well, though. Literal and metaphoric interpretations. We have this difference with the modern audience and the ancient audience, which may or may not be there when we're talking about spirit and matter. And Christian doctrines have always been statements about spiritual reality, not specimens of primitive physical science. So he's saying that it's never been about matter or how to work with the elements together to make certain things. And sometimes with our metaphoric language, we go astray, and he talks about the fall of man not being literal. And sometimes C.S. Lewis talks about how some people have said it's actually a fall upwards, which kind of reminds me of Gnosticism in a certain way. And he says this is not compatible with the Christian perspective. Carrying the cross is also not a literal thing by Jesus that he said, but you should take it seriously, not make it merely mean leading a respectable life and subscribing moderately to charity. We can make speech duller, we cannot make it more literal, he argues. And concern of supernatural and unconditioned reality is, this is what we're working with, and senses and our language can be something that's interpreted more literally, like the water into wine story, since it does appeal to our senses and we can explain it. But the Son of God, that's more of an abstract. Jesus being the Son of God, more metaphorical. We can't grasp God's business too well, so we stoop to our own language, and we can't see it as exact. We can only approximate it and describe it on our human level. And that is the end of Horrid Red Things of my summary. Thank you for watching. All the best. Cheers.